Thank you very much, my sister, to do such an important thing, to make us not forget our leader, very serious leader in many ways, Utata Sisulu. As well as our leaders were Umama Sisulu. Many qualities that we can talk about with those two. So it is important to make their names not fade away. I also thank everyone who's here, particularly my good brother there, Babu Pusag. We went to some places together at some point during the struggle. At some point I made it a point that he comes to Mozambique during the struggle. But also, as you know, he gave birth to a very powerful organization that he made a call that the time had come that we should be together as freedom fighters. And it became such a big organization. It had a background how it came into that level. So thank you very much, my brother, to see you. When you made a call, it reminded me that there was this occasion. I cancelled other things and thought I should come. Particularly because Mama Sisulu is now called Mama Sisulu. We collided in the early days of our struggle, and we worked together with her. She served in one of the department I was in charge of, which I've just forgotten the name. And I remember when we forced into her some instructions, and we were three. The old man who was running that department as well, which I've just forgotten, together with Joe before he was assassinated, when we forced her to go to Swaziland and make herself a citizen of Swaziland for our own reasons, because we wanted her to be nearer. What she said is absolutely true. We spent a lot of time. When she came out of the detention, she gave me a message from the special branch who said I escaped to the country. She must tell me something that one day they'll catch me. But they did not succeed to do so. But thank you to keep the name of our father and mother and leaders of a very special caliber. I think one of the speakers here said these two were unique, and unique in many ways. And the uniqueness of these leaders was shared with the leaders of time. I think if our learned people would take time to write the history of our struggle, particularly during the time of that leadership, would do a lot to make South Africans understand why they had to be arrested, kept in prison for many, many years, more than any other country that has fought for liberation. I don't remember. Maybe there are. But they were the ones who were really sentenced for life. And they spent a lot of time. And part of their time they spent here in Robben Island. And therefore it is pleasing that even this occasion is here on Robben Island. Robben Island became something out of this world. After declaring the armed struggle in the country, established, this was done, by the way, after the banning of the ANC. In other words, outlawing of the ANC. And that leadership said and thought, what can we do? And it were that leadership that decided, let us declare the armed struggle. And did it so carefully that they decided we should not interfere with the ANC, but we should make the ANC exist underground. And they argued that we would not make the ANC a military organization, but would make the ANC a continued organization of the people that will help to make South Africa be normal, because it had been made by the rulers an abnormal country. And therefore it was important to establish an organization that is going to declare war and fight to liberate our country. It emerged from that type of leadership. And it had a long discussion when there was a debate whether we should indeed go for armed struggle or continue, change names maybe. And there was evidence already that if you had an organization to try to change the name, it doesn't work. Because the name that the second organization that will come will be also banned. So you will change the names until when? That was a question we asked here. There was an experience of Zimbabwe, which was then Rhodesia. The first organization there was the African National Congress. It was banned by the oppressors, and they established another name, ZAP. It was banned again. So the leaders here had learned you can't think that the name will help you. And therefore, once they do so, it means they're challenging you to get into the struggle. These leaders, particularly that Sisulu, was part of the greatest thinkers ever produced, I think, in our struggle, given the level at which the struggle was. of course, Sisulu being a type of a leader that was recognized by the leadership, he was charged at some point, and there was a case against him. And he then, the case was done and he was found guilty. He appealed the sentence, so he did not go to prison at the time. Then the case went on again. But he and his colleagues had taken a decision that there was no time to go to prison. The struggle was now on. If he was sentenced, whatever sentence, to go to jail, they took a decision he would not go to jail. He will go underground and disappear. In other words, not serve the sentence. Very bold, very serious, if that happened. Indeed, I think he was sentenced for 6 years, if I remember. And the police never found him. He disappeared into the thin air. And they did not know where he was. That's when he now was conducting the struggle underground, not seeing his children, wife, just disappeared. And of course, after some time, when the struggle was going on, they were found near Johannesburg. I'm saying this because by that time, we, the small ones, were running up and down. We had been arrested as well. We're in Pretoria. When the Rivonia Trial was caught, we almost wanted to die because that was our hope. And indeed, Comrade Mlangeni, who had gone for torture, he came back and said that the special branch were boasting that we found your fathers. They're arrested, all arrested. And we nearly wanted to collapse. As they came in the main prison in Pretoria, Kamela was called aside and given clothes for prison. He was immediately taken away from the big group. He was not allowed to exercise together with us because we were exercising together with the leadership. And that was the beginning of his journey to Robben Island as a prisoner. And thereafter, the rest were expected to be sentenced to death or whatever. Of course, they were now in small or in prison clothes with Madiba, who had been arrested after him. And he was sentenced to 5 years. So these two friends, one was doing 6, one was doing 5. But it was still felt there would be a death sentence made. It was a tough time. These leaders behaved very well. And they were ready in prison to issue instructions to the followers. However, they were sentenced to come to Robben Island. Madiba had been to Robben Island already for a short while, but came back to the case. Our case was almost simultaneous. We had to go to a court, which was not necessarily a court because they were using the court. You don't know how unhappy we were that our leaders have been arrested. That changed the struggle in the country. And there are many, many other things. Of course, they stayed to prison for many years, finally released. When the world decided that there should be talks in South Africa. We're very happy that they were out, still alive. With the years, few years, not the kind of life as we're told. South Africa changed into a situation of negotiations. I'm hoping that at some point we'll have time to tell this story as we know it, we who were in the struggle, who at some point were sentenced to death and came to Robben Island and stayed here for a decade. Some more, very few stayed for a short time. We got to know one another even better. And I think we're more serious to fight and finish everything. I always feel my leaders have got information how, for an example, elections came about and what were the decisions taken by the Western countries, by the way, who then pushed the government that we should negotiate. And negotiations took place. And there are many issues, again, we have not talked about, because at times people take it easy. Some even criticize elections. I mean, why do I say elections? Criticize the negotiations, but not realizing that it was the struggle that led to that, particularly when the Western countries realized that it was a matter of years, the enemy will be defeated. And once that happened, there will be no longer any way of preventing us liberating ourselves. The argument they put to the government was, you have to negotiate. Because if you don't negotiate, probably in a decade, you will be defeated. And there will be no more any white person in South Africa who would be in charge. And you will have no say once you are defeated. And therefore, the Western countries said, we are instructing you to negotiate because you have no alternative. If you compare two things, fighting and you are defeated and you have got no role in this country, than negotiating for your future so that you can have at least some role to play. You have to agree that you must negotiate. We as the Western countries will not support you if you continue fighting. Because if you did so, then South Africa was free, you will have no right of anything. And therefore, we as the Western countries were not going to allow this. These were secret discussions. Because if you did that and you were defeated, the communists will come in, take over this country. And our strategic point in the world would have been gone. And therefore negotiate. It was very difficult for them to agree, but they said, we're not going to nest you. You cannot make the Western world lose a strategic, a number, almost 2 strategic points in the world. And then they had no alternative there to say, okay, let us agree. They allowed P.W. de Klerk, those who were still alive will remember, when he made a statement addressing the white population in South Africa. He said, the world is changing. We also must change. We cannot fail to change. Because if we don't change, we are faced with 2 choices: to adapt or die. We need to choose between these 2. He was now telling the whites the time for negotiations has come. And indeed, thereafter, there are many things the Western countries did to help, because they promised South Africa that we will do everything to ensure that you succeed. They said, the Western countries, we will make it a point that as you negotiate, we, as Western countries, put together. When I'm very old, I'll write which countries were talking among themselves, not now. That our job will be to weaken the ANC because it is too strong, too big. We want to weaken it so that it becomes smaller, so that it does not run the country on its own. It must be forced to have parties that will work with. They also did a number of things. Many lives left or were taken away because they wanted, in order to reduce the strength of the African National Congress, it was also to reduce the leadership of the ANC that they thought were a threat, or they would not allow the ANC to be weakened. Hence, quite a number of assassinations, as well as quite a number of, what is this thing? Where people just feel my arm is getting weak. Huh? What? Huh? It's called stroke. Oh, you said it at the same time. That's why people like our president, Oliver Tambo, became a victim. Not him alone. But some also, among what we were referred to as our enemy, who were too radical for their thing, they also received the same from their brothers, because they thought they were, in another way, they will also delay the negotiations. Others were killed, like Christian, etc. That was a part of weakening South Africa so that the objectives that were enshrined in our document, the Freedom Charter, should not be implemented. So they planned and did every other thing. And the issue, therefore, of the comrades who are here, who have stayed forever, who could have died, it was obvious that we were supposed not to say we cannot negotiate, but to know in negotiations what we wanted to achieve, where will it end? And indeed, the leaders or the Western world in this country planned a long process which involved, among others, to separate the comrades, put Mandela alone, put others in their place. It was also discussed with them, but they did not know that if these giants were released, what would be the situation from Robben Island. And it was also important that they wanted to shake the mood of the population if these old people were released. And they decided to release the oldest of them all. That was done. Why was released alone? Was to check the mood. And indeed, Mbeki was released for that reason. And of course, thereafter, the rest were released. But if you notice, around the same time as Madiba was coming out, Tambo was dying. And I'm saying this because it is absolutely important to understand and appreciate our struggle and how difficult it was and why it was so difficult, which at the right time will tell our side of the story. Indeed, today, that organization, which they wanted to be weak, in 30 years, they weakened it. It is weak now. Not just weak, almost moved off the route that it was given. Our job or our duty was supposed to accept the first situation which we negotiated. Some people say negotiation is cowardness. It's not. It depends how the circumstances are and what is it that you actually do and how do you keep on your line to the final destination. It doesn't say stop the destination. At that time, in the negotiations, there was an agreement that there has been too much blood and wars and everything. If on the first elections we allowed one party to lead, the hatred and working together and bringing peace would be quite difficult. And therefore it was important that we govern together to allow us to learn how to live together. And that's when we introduced in the negotiations what was called, by the way? Huh? No, that's when we said every party that will win so much will be part of government for that peace, government of national unity, to unite the people who have been fighting. It was done for very, very good reasons. I know that in the recent elections, people chose it, but it does not mean anything. There was a difference in the thinking then, because we say South Africans now must unite and come together and work together. And that's what we've been doing in the last 30 years. The only problem is that other people were continuing to weaken the ANC, and those who were in spaces, they were being weakened, and they were not defending what was being done. It just went on and on and on. I'm saying this because in the leadership of this great leader and his colleagues, and some of whom were recruited by him, is a leader we cannot forget, together with his colleagues. As I say, I don't remember, maybe some people will know that there is a country that had the cream of leaders being taken to prison for many, many, many years, and at the end succeeded to come out to conclude their task of liberating South Africa. If we failed to take South Africa to the final analysis, final point, we cannot blame them. We will always praise them because they came with many, many, many things, including the military struggle. It emerged from them. Some will remember when they responded to the Afrikaners, when they won elections, that the youth was the one that introduced a strategy how to fight under the banning, etc., under the behavior of the National Party government. And it is them who, in the document they produced and gave it to the mother body, which was called, I'm just forgetting it, what was it called? Program of Action. Program of Action. Towards the end, it said if we failed in what we are going to be doing, we'll resort to the armed struggle. And that's what they did. That's what they discussed when there was a banning. These were great thinkers. Great thinkers. And that discussion was very thorough and finally agreed by all organizations. I think if you take the time of our struggle and this type of leadership, when things were changing, we must agree that these were the greatest leaders that came into being during our struggle. I'm sure maybe when we arrive, we agree, we come to the final destination, we'll do a very big occasion to thank these, particularly Walter Sisulu and his colleagues. And that's why, for us to come to this prison, which was a very special prison, is an important reminder that South Africa must be finally completely free. We have not concluded our journey. I'm not talking about many things. If we just take the Freedom Charter, look at it, what is it that we have succeeded to implement, and the quantity that we have not succeeded to do it, which they are the parts that are more critical for the liberation of our country. As you know, Freedom Charter talks about the economy of this country, which we still don't have. And my good sister, I think also the timing of saying here is the voice of Sisulu is so good, because I believe our country, whether we like it or not, has to think twice and think more than twice as to how do we arrive where we said we will arrive. And I'm happy that we have our colleagues here who spend time thinking and looking at where we're going. It's absolutely appreciated. We believe this country, because of the manner in which it is occupied or settled, has a lot to give. It influenced the struggle in the continent to liberate ourselves from being whatever you could call it, but oppressed. And I think this is going to help us to remind us of the leaders who were brave, who were thinkers, who did everything to lead this country to what we at times call freedom. I'm sure it is going to revive us to remember that our journey is not yet over. And we are closer. We fought and made the big countries submit that we're going to defeat them. And one day we'll tell a more story in details how that was going to be. They realized they could not resist. They could not just fight, because we were no longer using Nobkiris only. We were now trained soldiers. And it was a matter of time. And maybe many of us felt that everything was now fine. I always ask the question, if that was the case, where was the economy to the black people? Why were we not having our businesses, our factories? Why up to now? If you get into where people keep money, what is it called by the way? Huh? Banks, yes. If you get to the bank, you're black, you say, I want to do this business, no matter how much your plan is, they will ask you questions that almost equals your hair. And at the end, they'll say, sorry, we are not in a position to give you. But if a white person came in and said, I do want to have a business, the questions would not be as so much. And at the end, the answer would be, you have the funds. At times with very little question, it tells you that equality, much as it is in our constitution, It's not yet there. We can think it is not. I always tell people that even if you were driving in the national road, the black policeman stops. They're generally very rough. Ipi passport yakho ipi into better. And then we are going to serious, and from there we answer ulindele ukuthi keep some money, take the money out and bribe. Otherwise we are bad. But if a black policeman sees a white man driving, come very softly, sorry sir, I would like to see your paper, sir. The approach is not the same. That tells you we are not the same. Some stay in the cities, some stay, what is it next to the city? Huh? What? Township, yes. Why are we staying in the townships? Tell me. Why are we staying in the townships? Why not in the cities? I'm not talking about the small people who are still sitting there because they've got money. It tells you that that freedom we talked about has not arrived, the final one. And if we don't realize that at this age, at this kind of people, then we're in trouble. That's why it is important to remember Sisulu, what they used to say, how they fought, how they organized the best cadres who became presidents. Thinking was accurate, was clear, was serious. Can we? I always say we are funny in any case because our ancestors established a national movement of the black people of South Africa. We are separating ourselves every day. I don't know how many political parties we have. What will that help us with? The more political parties we have, the more the majority reduces from us, which we could utilize now to have a 2/3 majority and correct things in this country. I'm so happy that we have raised the name of Sisulu to become a name again in whatever we do. And I wish we could raise the name of the Mbegis, the names of, and not to make a mistake because we are young. When I'm talking about the Mbegi, I'm talking about the father of Tambo Mbeki, which is called Govan Mbeki. I don't want him to make a mistake. He's not yet at that age. That's the age of the father. And many of them. This to me must touch our thinking about our country. This country is a wonderful country. It cannot be a one-sided thing forever. Those who fought to have equal rights and everything, we must follow them. It must be truthful, it must be right. I'm very happy that we have this, and I hope, my good sister, those who are going to support this, know it is a support which is very fundamental to our whatever you call it. It's not something that we are just saying, here is this gentleman who was nice. You know, the old man, President Mandela, used to say for him to be what he became, it was because of this man. He used to tell a very nice story that when he came to Johannesburg for the first time, he was shocked to see a black man typing, because that's what Sisulu was doing. Hey, this man is so educated. He knows to touch these things. Because he says that's where he got into politics that made him the greatest leader in the world. And the man who made him the greatest leader remained a great leader, although he was not as other places. There are also reasons why the Mandela, particularly among the leaders, was promoted. Mainly, that was the work of President Oliver Tambo when he went to prison. Now, I would appreciate my good sister and everybody else to say, we don't just do this for the sake of it. We must actually help ourselves to appreciate where we come from and what we need to do in order to be what we are supposed to be as citizens of this country. Well, I'm happy, and I'm happy to visit Robben Island. I stayed here for 10 years. And I can tell you the atrocities here, they were serious. You know, I was telling a story to my colleagues here, how we're beaten up on the second day of our arrival. Because one of our comrades protested when he saw comrades being beaten up, and they thought that they must teach us a lesson. And one old man, Nadavarian Naidu, from Durban, he got tired and he went to the ward and said, "Sir, I can no longer continue." He said, I can't continue. And he hit him with a hand. And he was a very clever man. He was trying to move off from being beaten. He just went straight like this. And they realized he's dead. They went water. He was not seeing. He was seeing. He just wanted not to be beaten. And they put him on the corner there. He said, they stopped beating him. But immediately thereafter, they beat one of our comrades who used to be the lecturer at the University of Fort Hare. He was one of the commanders of that unit, and they hated him because he was the professor. And I was following him. At some point, he was carrying a big stone, and this water came from behind with that tough stick, and they hit him here with the stone and everything. It was white, started being white before the blood came out. And he threw this thing down. And they beat him. From there, they took him to the hospital. I realized it means here we're going to die. There's no way we're going to survive here. And they were hitting him because he was the only, at that time, graduate here who was coming from Fort Hare. They said he thinks he's clever. And I can tell you more other things that happened here. We worked at the quarry, this quarry that I was saying, this side. We were sitting facing the sea, that side, very cold, with just a shot. Just a shot, a shirt, and a skipper and a khaki, that's all. And we were closing the water there because we were doing a quarry. We finally succeeded. We had the donga, the wall. We then sat behind him. were very warm. We sit there. One day they thought, this is not right. On a weekend, they went there, took all our stones and hammers into where we used to suffer. When we came, they said, you go, you work here, not in the war. We said, no, no, no. We decided, there were two organizations at the time, I don't want to tell you which one. Others took everything they said there, we said no. They said, well, we are calling the head of the prison. What we did, we immediately took our hammers and carried them in our hands. And we were armed for the warders. And we stood there, we said, we are not going, we are not sitting here, we are going there. One comrade from East London said to me, standing to me, hey, Geli, this is a Donga revolution. Because we're fighting to get our Donga next to us. We said, yeah, we call it Donga revolution on Robben Island. And when the warder of the prison came, realized that we were armed, he came, our brothers were working already. And Baba was saying, Banomza, I was shy. He said, I was shy. My phone was shy. We were ready to put there was cheeses here. Pagat. They say you must come back. We came back. And nothing was done to us. Said, Donga revolution succeeded. There were always a problem. I can tell you with many things which were happening here. We cannot forget this, South Africans, that we still have some kilometers to come to the final end. That time we were fighting, there was war. What makes us not to finish what is now just elections? All we need, 2/3, this country is home and dry. Why are we not voting together? Why do we want small parties to vote here and there and there? Why? I'm sure one day we'll answer the question. But thank you very much for what we have done. It is an important action, particularly because Tata Sisulu was one of very scarce leaders. He was a man, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And he had a wonderful mother to us, who began to fight all the time. She became a great leader. This they deserve, to have their name that can make a contribution to the citizens. Thank you very much. Siabo.